We need to go to the end, remember?
I guess the internet has
I want to end it.
allowed all this stuff to...
We have no ender pearls, no enderman spawn.
You need that one. Check my chest.
Goes back for very long. This is just allowed
Can we
more
use them?
isolated people to find
I think I
stuff, right?
have one more. Let me
Yeah,
check.
absolutely. One of the chapters in my book, I talked about how
Ah.
the internet has turbocharged the conspiracy theory movement.
So laggy on your
Challenge for conspiracy
server.
theorists used to be very narrow. This respected what their most
What's the best way to mine aluminum fences?
Oh my god. Dude, there's a Cyclops next to my house. I don't have any weapons.
Oh, I really want to battle a Cyclops.
Okay, go down to my house and yeah, don't die though.
Wait. First I want to fix my house.
No, come on. Can't keep
Fine then, gosh.
termination.
I get paid.
Why would the Israeli, how did the Israelis get involved in this?
Yeah, sit up here.
Where are you?
Doing a little damage. I'm down in my house.
On your or is it your kingdom house or like your village shop?
Underground.
Oh, the cave clops. Oh yeah, I can't do that. I can't do cave clops. I'm sorry, you have to find someone else for that.
I killed him.
There you go. The difference is I don't give either
How
S's.
many? I know I have legal one.
These people marching in the so-called 9/11 truth movement.
Okay, I never. I don't.
Young people, you often see them on university campuses. Cranks tend to be older types, people in their 40s and 50s. Often they're college professors, often they're computer scientists, often people with a very technical frame of mind who are drawn to very interesting conspiracy theories. They're almost always men for reasons that I explain in my book.
Why do you even need ender chest? Where do you even go?
I don't know. I think chests are cool. Give me real life.
Very mild mannered professorial guy who's actually
Okay, if I give you 30 real might, can I have your 2 ender chests?
What? What?
If I give you 30 real might, can I get the 2 chests?
30 real?
Yeah, 30. Enough to make 10 pickaxes.
Everything.
Wait, what?
Thank you very much.
Daddy, yes, I hear.
Oh, let me see your chest real
Is Erica Lafferty, the daughter of Dawn Huxtable, the Sandy Hook.
You don't even need it. Oh yeah, I already took your chest anyway.
Don't let him
But you
in!
don't even need ender chest.
Give me a shotgun!
Hold on.
Hurry!
It's just kind of amazing to me.
Who's that?
I was looking for a video online, I think it was last night actually, and I found a 10-minute YouTube
I'll give you ice.
about some actress that they were saying like,
I have a silk touch.
and he was like,
Hold on, let me see. You have what I.
band on her head and saying like the cream, her hair,
Wait, do you have tea leaf?
Tea leaf? No.
It's really hot.
She hasn't had long hair in, I don't know, almost a year, possibly actually more than a year at that point. So, just their lack of information and everybody makes it like crazy conspiracy theories, like it's not even accurate.
That's my food.
It's ridiculous.
And again, we wouldn't normally even kind of discuss this kind
That's
of
what they'll
stuff.
grab.
We've been airtime on this program. We're not naming these websites because I really don't want to
Still looking.
traffic. But the fact that
What are you looking for?
from the university
I don't know. I'm looking for the office.
saying that,
Some
you know,
stuff.
or suggesting, kind of throwing out the idea that maybe crisis actors
I don't have
somehow
anything
hired,
expensive, and the only expensive stuff I got is in the bottom chest.
Like, does that, when you hear that,
That's as expensive as any of my stuff gets.
I think it's great.
Unless you count ice.
Worldwide that someone would
I'm thinking. Just thinking.
the entire situation, you and all the 26 families, you and all the staff members that had to live through that day. It's honestly disgusting.
I mean, do you think the university should do something, or do you think it's just, you know, people should know about it and move on?
One second.
I briefly saw it, I think it was someone who was from the university saying that, you know, it didn't have any affiliation with them, and, you know, hearing them speak out and say that they're absolutely not supporting it is great to hear, but, I mean, to have someone like that on staff, I know the university I work for definitely wouldn't tolerate that.
Well, Erica, I'm sorry that, you know, coming up on the 1 month anniversary, never just so anniversaries are that
Okay.
you and other family members have to even
There you go.
hear about this kind of stuff and deal with this kind of stuff, and I appreciate you taking the time to call, and I wish you the peace. I wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
I'm muted,
Thank you
sir.
for voicing the truth.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. Eric, daughter of Don Huxburn, who is the school principal at Sandy Hook. Let's know what you think. On Twitter, we're talking about this. I tweeted about this earlier, adding Anderson Cooper. Do you think this guy should, is this just free speech, or should the university do something? Let's know what you think. And again, our invitation stands to Associate Professor. We give him a fair hearing. We'd like to have him on the program. Up next, is there a link between gun violence and violent video games? It's an old question, been around. We're going to actually look at the research and talk to former top FBI profiler when we come back.
Stadium.
Anderson Cooper 360, brought to you by T-Row Prime. Understanding the connections of today's complex globally.
No, you can keep your obsidian. I don't need your obsidian. Well, it depends on everything I can use it for. If I need it or not.
Change engineering and design. Aluminum production in South Africa. And the aerospace industry in the U.S.
I'm an elite real bike helmet.
And the connections of a complex global economy. It's just one of
What about a bunch of-
75% of our mutual funds meet their 10-year limit average. T-Row price. Invest with confidence. Of course, the prospectus or summary
Just those-
prospectus with investment information, risk, fees, and expenses.
Wait, hold on. Wait, did you break it?
I don't need obsidian. Oh, I already took it.
That was quick.
Hey, sir, I'm out of school supplies and taking them to work. No, I'm just looking for my stapler.
That's why I didn't
This
need
bank
I save money by using FedEx Ground and buy my own supplies.
It's a great idea. Very good. We got clients in today. Save on ground shipping at FedEx office. Someday, your life will travel. That's your watching. Lexus LS, an entirely new pursuit. Complement number 8, waking the baby. Robitussin liquid formula soothes your throat-on contact, and the active ingredient...
I'll do this to Corey.
Robitussin, don't suffer the consequences.
Famously.
Now, small businesses don't have to chase down their
Why'd you change your game mode?
With Pay Anywhere, you can accept credit cards on any smartphone or tablet. There's no setup, monthly or hidden fees. You're charged a low rate only when you process. If you're a small business, don't wait to get paid. Pay Anywhere, available at these fine retailers. Get paid now.
At ChristianLegal.com, you can find the largest, fastest growing community of Christian singles and find God's match for you, the way we did. Joining is easy and free at ChristianLegal.com.
You
Because
guys
something
hear
that
me?
happens to me, the connection just disappears.
Why'd you change your game
The
mode?
real one. Vice President Biden next day with representatives from the video gaming industry.
Really? I've also made a
Reported
couple
excessive violent games and other killers have been reported. And people are concerned that bloody games, gory movies, brutal TV shows are doing bad things for our kids. And you can see why culture would be part of the conversation about preventing another Sandy Hook. Now, pro or anti-gun, Republican or Democrat, a lot of people do agree on that. Take a look. Vicious, violent video game with names like Bulletstorm, Grand Theft Auto, Mortal Kombat, and Splatterhouse. The violence in the entertainment culture. What about the violence in our video games? The depiction of these assault weapons again and again.
You've been recording for 3 hours, for like 4 hours, and then the call dropped.
Of a violent-oriented world, you get the idea. Now keep in mind, there's not a lot of good science behind it. Because of that, different studies have reached different conclusions. 2 headlines, comprehensive reviews of all the available research tell the story. First, from Iowa State University, quote, ISU study proves conclusively that violent video game play makes more aggressive kids. Now here's one from the technology news site Ars Technica, quote, meta-analysis uncovered no real link between violence and games. 2 headlines, 2 reputable research psychologists, each looking at many individual studies, and arriving at totally opposite conclusions. Then there's this: as video game sales have soared, violence by males aged 10 to 24 has actually been going down, plummeting. That's according to Centers for Disease Control. There's also the fact that many other countries with big sales of violent games also have very low rates of violent youth crime. Now, given all that, is focusing on links between violent media and bad actors useful, and if so, under what circumstances? Former FBI profiler Mariana Mitchell joins us now. She's the author of Dangerous Instincts, Views, and FBI profiling Tactics to Avoid Unsafe Situations. So now, Mariana, you actually think there is a link between violent games and violence. How so?
I do. For a small group of troubled adolescents or young men, in my experience with these kinds of cases, and in my research as an FBI profiler, I have found that there's not a cause and effect. They did not cause violence, but for these young people who are already contemplating carrying out acts of violence or acting out towards others in a violent way, these videos and very violent websites and violent news can actually fuel what's already there, and in doing that, it can help them desensitize to acting out violently. It away at their sense of empathy, at their sense of compassion, and it really turns human beings into objects. But again, it's for this small group of people already considering acting out violently.
But
Wait, can I try?
just to push back on this,
I don't want the leather.
If there's this group of disturbed people that you are describing, if there weren't violent videos, isn't there something else that might push them over the edge as well?
What do you say?
Sure, and I wouldn't suggest that these videos are pushing them over the edge. When we do a threat assessment on someone, we don't look at just whether or not they're looking at violent videos. Because violent video is very complicated.
Put it in the chat.
But when you look at, for example, are they saturated in a world where all they do is consider violence? In fact, in the research that we did in the Bureau back in the late 90s and in 2000 was there a constant preoccupation with violent themes in every aspect of their life? But that was one of many variables that enabled us as threat assessors to say this threat that they're posing really elevates itself to a high level of threat. It's one of many. We don't think it causes it, but for that troubled group who's already thinking about it and thinking about acting out violently, it can...
And it's a situation where as a society, we almost need to be able to say, well, you know, violent video games, hardcore, whatever, these things are bad, even though they aren't necessarily causing the crime rate to go up or the rate of rape and sexual violence to go up. But we're always looking for Charles, I mean, do you see a link? Or what do you make of this?
I mean, I think that the profiler was right in the sense that it probably adds to a person who's already disturbed, it already probably pushes that person a little bit further. But I do think that the idea that it desensitizes us as an entire culture is a very important point to make. And I think that another thing that's important to remember when we look at shootings and killings, and even though murder rates have gone down, the actual number of shootings continues to rise. And the reason that the murder rate goes down but the shootings go up is that we are better able to respond to shootings now. That is better 911 calls, better medicines and trauma centers and things like that. So we need to take the focus off of who's getting killed and why that number keeps going down. Look at how many people are actually getting shot and whether or not those shootings, which are on the rise, can be pinned to anything, whether that be a proliferation of guns, whether that be a violent culture or whatever.
Do you think that anything really will change? I mean, do you think that there has been some sort of a tipping point?
I think that there absolutely will be changes, and I think that, but what's important to remember is that to look at this not like the healthcare debate where you have some giant bill that covers most of the bases, but look at this as a first step that should be a step among many steps. And so that whatever comes of this, whether you get a assault weapons ban or not, whatever you get is a push closer to something that is a solution that you do absolutely not.
Ross, do you see this as more of a setup, these talks as more of a setup for the elections in 2014 and 2016? In part, yeah. I mean, I think the White House is going to try and hit a sweet spot on this with whatever policy proposals they come up with. They want something that is sort of moderate enough and in certain ways, minor enough that it has some actual chance of passing the Senate and more importantly the House, but also something that seems reasonable enough that in the, fairly high likely scenario that it doesn't pass, they can take it to the public in 2014 and 2016 and say, here's another example of Republican intransigence. And honestly, what's on the table right now seems to be some combination of tougher background checks, the ban on high-capacity magazines you mentioned, and so on. And I think that, Charles and I probably agree that both of those are unlikely to make a big difference in terms of gun violence overall. I actually think the background check legislation is in certain ways more promising than the ban on assault weapons that a lot of liberals are interested in, because we had a ban on assault weapons and it had no discernible impact on the crime rate, whereas background checks and waiting periods might not actually impact the murder rate, but they might have some impact on the suicide rate. A lot of this, and Charles mentioned the issue of shootings going up, some of that is accidental violence, but also rise in suicide rates, particularly since the Great Recession. And there, if you just delay, you make somebody wait a few days before they get a gun, or if they're a hardened criminal, that's not going to make any difference. But if there's someone thinking about suicide, if you think of it as a public health issue, that might be a little more promising. That's a really interesting point you raised there. I've read a lot of studies about suicide, and actually, even if you delay somebody a few minutes, or even a few seconds in some cases, that can be all the difference in whether or not actually somebody follows through. It's sort of counterintuitive, but even a few minutes can make a huge difference. We downloaded the Ross appreciates being on Charles as well. Of opening fire at a California high school tonight, how a teacher stepped in to stop the attack. Compare that.